Ethereum US dollar, yes, welcome Ethereum. Yeah, interesting one, and one that served us very well. First half of the year was hollowed out most of the middle of the year going into the second half of the year, and then came a bit alive when we had these structures. I'll just show you our base camp actually. Over here, this was a key point of when it rebroke. This was a long time frame, a daily setup by the way, and you could have got in. We were getting in little primer wind-ups over here down at the $300 mark, but the final get-in point here where I've magnified that area was at the $355 mark. And the good news for Ethereum fans, and I'm thinking of Omar as well out there, was that, as you probably know, we've run $1,000. We did a YouTube last night saying that Ethereum will do that, and we've been long it for quite a while on the premium boards. That was on the previous bigger setup, as it was making $500, $600, and then ramped all the way up to $8. This is our more recent setup. I've got a number of shots, but I haven't got the point at its broke. I don't think I took a shot of it. That was 922 when it was breaking here, the 762. So it had gone as high from that move, the previous setup, all the way up, and it had topped out at about 880, and then it pulled all the way back down to about 500 over here. So that set up a nice amplitude, which is giving us this 1100 run. That's on the Bitstamp chart, by the way. It's not quite as high on the others. This is where we were, I think it was last night, where we were saying, guys, you're going to get a 1100 run on Bitfinex, and you're probably going to get very close to a 1100 run, or you may well still get the 1100 run on Polynex, although the target is about 1095, 96. So if we go to the live, this was very clear, reaffirming this hammer. It has a little attempt to sell off and then goes back up, little attempt to sell off. These are very powerful candles that for continuation. Anyway, so if we go back to the live charts, you can see what's happened. Now, the interesting part of this is it also brings a bit of Bitcoin in. So we've run the 1,000. There was a touch, not quite, and pull back, and then we run the 1,000 overnight. I think it traded 1023. There's the targets. This is on the Polynex platform of, as I say, 1099s, 1096s, there around, give or take $1. Pulled back here though, however, because we've also had on a shorter time frame a little bit of an upside setup in Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin reasserting, what do you get? You get once again, HVF structure in it. There was the break. There's the volume arriving over here when you get the break. You can learn all about how we do this in the Trading Metamorphosis program, but that's pointing to a 1638. The interesting part of that, of Bitcoin completing on that 1638, will be the following. In terms of this larger charting, is that you will have a very high high 2 here, which will probably mean that this will all turn into continuation to the upside, and we'll have a run to 22,000 at some point. So this is starting to undermine the bearish case, because this is putting in such a strong relative high 2. It hasn't entirely undermined it. In other words, if we sold off exceedingly strongly after making this target, assuming we do, it still has to do it. It would be very close to high 2 here. You would have, if we had a very strong sell-off that came very flat and low, all the way down to these levels. Not very likely. So the probabilities are now swinging away from the bear scenario and back onto the bull scenario. But if you just make it here and then we have a little drift down and a gradual pull up, the next thing will be a pump, and then this has the better part of a 22,000 target. So that's starting to emerge now as the new favorite for Bitcoin. So this is looking like a once-off sell-off, and other structures are no longer holding. But that was quite bearish that we were so low to that low 2. So there was still quite a bit of selling to be done. It remains to be seen if we will sell off that hard again. So the bias to Bitcoin, but after making this target, there will be a little bit of an easing potentially and some form of comeback, or if it just makes a marginally higher high and it overruns, also you would expect probably some kind of pullback. That may well be the trigger for when Ethereum then, after selling off into the Bitcoin strength, then finishes the job to make it 11. At this point of the Ethereum making its 1095s on Polynex, its 1100s on Bitfinex, and 1100 pluses on Bitstamps, etc., etc. There are minor differences across the exchanges. I would then expect a reversion to Bitcoin to be maybe on the card, and then the alt season certainly might have had a degree of its run as Bitcoin starts to be the boss again. So just a couple of takes. Possible scenario. It doesn't cover all potential outcomes, but a possible scenario for people to consider. Okay, with that, that's Francis. By the way, if you want to become part of our April Theory weekend and events where we'll do both live trading on the weekend and cover the theory and be part of the community course for the better part of a year, all prepaid, you want to pop over to themarketsniper.com, the website, and then you can be all of these trades. We've got an amazing potential 2.5x, and we are brewing a long run 6x that we're going to be looking at, but keeping a watchful eye at, not yet ready yet on that. So those are the kind of events that if you get right, and you don't always get all of them always right 100% of the time, very quickly pays for your investment in a program and the learning, and very quickly you are tapping into the bigger brain of the entire community around the clock 24/7. So pop over to themarketsniper.com. You know where to find it if you feel aligned. Everything I say here should not be taken as advice. I'm not qualified to give anybody advice.